Everyone, and I mean everyone and their dog and their grandma, is speaking out about Rasmus Andersson and a trade to the Toronto Maple Leafs. The Calgary Flames star defenseman is the talk of the town, with practically every NHL insider, including Elliotte, Friedman, and Darren Dreger, proposing trades to the Six. We're going to get into all that more in this video, but first I want to welcome you to Flames Digest. I'm Mark Griffith. If you're new around here and you love the Flames, make sure you subscribe so you can stay up to date on all the latest news, updates, reports, and rumors revolving around your Calgary Flames. We would love to welcome you to the Flames Digest family. Until we get into, everyone talking about Rasmus Andersson, let's talk about last night's game because let's be honest, wins don't happen often for our hockey club, and last night we did manage to get one. I know people on Team Tank aren't too pleased, but every now and then it's nice to sprinkle in a little win, especially when it's a shutout that not only helps, team morale, especially with the defense, but more so, with Dustin Wolf, with the goaltending. He hasn't had a great season, mostly because of the team in front of him, but he gets a shutout on the day, which is fantastic, a 2-0 win. I will say, sure, the Flames played pretty well, and my older brother actually said, this is the first 20 minutes I watched of Flames hockey, talking about the first period last night, and we looked good, so he was kind of confused as to why we're so bad. But you know what? I'd say the Flames definitely didn't play bad in this one. San Jose played bad in this one. They didn't really get anything going, as you can see with the shots. Dustin Wolf actually only had to stop 16 shots for the shutout in this game. So San Jose, I don't know if they were tired or what, but the Flames played pretty good shutdown hockey. They got lucky with the win. I mean, really, the Sharks kind of gifted Blake Coleman the goal, in the what ended up being the game winner, of course. So Coleman gets a goal, Sammy Hansa gets a goal, and Backlund gets an assist. So that line, the only guys getting points on the night, all a +2 as well. But Wolf only had to stop one shot in the first period in this game, and that's what I mean. It really seemed like San Jose looked terrible. They looked like the San Jose of the past couple seasons. So it's, hey, a win's a win. Great for team morale, of course. And people on Team Tank might not be thrilled, but again, it's good to sprinkle in a win every now and then, especially when Wolfie gets a shutout and you can go, oh, woo, at the Dome. But let's get into the thick of this and how everyone is talking about Razz. And this all kind of started maybe a couple days ago now with this tweet from Jay Rosehill, who I believe is part of Leafs Nation. I'm not 100% certain on that, but I think he is. Now, he came out with this tweet, kind of this big report that has since gone pretty crazy viral and has everyone talking. So he said, I guess the Maple Leafs are working hard to get Rasmus Andersson out of Calgary. Not sure what they'd have to give to get him, though. And that's the key when it comes to any trades involving the Toronto Maple Leafs. They don't have a lot of assets. You think of what they've traded away, just even at last year's deadline. They traded away a couple first-round picks. They traded away Fraser Minton. All they really have left that a lot of teams could want is either their really good roster players, like, Austin Matthews or Matthew Nyes, which I'll get into later in this video, or, a young guy like Easton Cowan, maybe Nick Robertson. Otherwise, it's not like the Leafs have loads of assets, loads of picks. So I think that's what's interesting here. As you can see, this got, at the time I screenshotted it, 400,000 views. It's at way more than that now. So it really has a lot of people talking. Spawning from this is this person here. So Lassila, I don't know if this is, any sort of credible source or anything, but they say per sources, Rasmus Andersson will be traded from the Flames to the Leafs. Return sounds like Maccelli and a 2027 second, or Robertson and a prospect and a 2027 second. Hearing the 2028 first is off the table. David Kampf was the cap dump for this. Weird situation there with him, but anyway, we're a Flames channel. Now this obviously, I don't know if it was supposed to be some sort of joke saying that a trade did happen, but it shows what a potential return kind of could be. And this tweet also had a lot of people talking. I don't know. I don't love these returns for Razz at all. Maccelli, we don't really want or need. Robertson, maybe, but we'd rather have Jason Robertson from Dallas. Either way, I don't know. This one was interesting, and I just wanted to show it as well. Now, Elliotte Friedman talked about this whole situation loads. So from the Fan Hockey Show yesterday, Friedman says the early trade market was players who were unhappy in their situations. Now it's players whose teams aren't that good or teams starting to get a little desperate. So he mentions Nashville and then Calgary and Toronto, the two main teams here of this video. And Stupid Nashville. Why are they tanking so much? Just let us be bad, Let us have that first overall pick. No one needs it to be Nashville. Come on. The NHL's a better place when Calgary has some good players. Continuing on this. So, Elliotte talks about the tax Toronto has to pay in making a trade with Calgary when discussing the Rasmus Andersson to Toronto rumors. Says it's ownership related as opposed to from Craig Conroy. And that's no surprise there. I don't think Calgary loves making deals with tree living. So that makes sense that maybe the Flames would ask a little more from a team run by Tree Living, and there is that Toronto tax, which sucks for the Leafs, but that's just how the NHL is when every other team hates you. So one more note on Andersson. Elliotte says, I've heard he kind of goes up and down on what he wants to do. I think that there are days he's like, I'm ready to move on, and there's other days he's like, I kind of like it here, which is not much of, a helpful report in any sense, but it does make sense for why, I guess, nothing has happened yet between an extension or a trade or anything like that. I think Conroy is, really letting Andersson, take his time. The ball is somewhat in his court more than it might be for other teams. So it is overall interesting, but I think Conroy's still obviously making some calls. Now, Elliotte Friedman as well said this. So he said, talking about Rasmus Andersson rumors, he said, I think Toronto took a run at him last year around the deadline. I'd be curious to know if it could get done now. That couldn't get done back then. And I think it would be much harder for Toronto to make a trade now. Last year, like I said, at the deadline, they had assets. They had first rounders, and they decided to trade for Carlo, and was it Lawton or someone like that? Hasn't really worked out for Toronto, and now they don't have as much that they could trade for Andersson. So if it didn't work last year, I don't see it working any better at this time of year. Now for kind of the bombshell from Darren Dreger. This one is just nuts. It'll make Leafs fans angry, and it'll actually make Flames fans, excited. So Darren Dreger said this about the Leafs and Andersson situation. He said, if you're Craig Conroy, you're asking for Matthew Knies, or you're asking for something like that. If you're Toronto, a contract extension would have to be part of it. He said this on the Barn Burner yesterday, which is nuts. I mean, I think Matthew Knies is definitely more valuable at this point than Rasmus Andersson, so we would almost have to give the Leafs more in order to get Knies. But that's what I'm saying. It's not like the Leafs have all that much that they can offer that the Flames would want in general. A young, good player, yes, Matthew Knies is that. Would the Leafs want to ever give up Knies? No. Would Leafs fans probably kill Brad Treliving if this happened? Yes. I mean, I would love to have Matthew Knies on the Flames. That would be outstanding. If that were to ever come to fruition, a trade that involves Razz and Knies, I mean, that would be very nice. I mean, I couldn't believe my eyes if that would happen. But either way, for Dreger to say that, I think he's showing that Andersson is valuable, and the Leafs would have to give up something big, because a lot of fans think, they can kind of pry people away for absolutely nothing. And on that note, we did have a lot of fans talking about it as well. It's not just insiders. When I say everyone is talking about it, I mean everyone. So here are some kind of, I guess, trade proposals or just thoughts on these rumors of Andersson to Toronto in general. So one person says Cowan, Carlo, and the 2028 first for Andersson. Honestly, I take that in a heartbeat as a Flames fan. I absolutely do that. I don't know if that's from a Leafs fan or not, but I mean, I'd do it. Another person said that would cost Danford, you'd think. I'd rather write this year off and keep him. Fair enough. From the Leafs standpoint, I'm not too familiar with Danford, but I think I could be enticed. Another person says a package of Andersson and Kadri would be nice. Good luck making that trade work. I have no idea what the Leafs would have to offer for that. Will Calgary ever do a deal with the Leafs? Such a good opinion to have. I don't really think so. Another person says Hanifin, 50% retained, was traded for a first, a third, and Miramanov, who was an undrafted player with not much potential. That's coming from a Leafs fan, kind of showing what the comparables are for the Andersson market. I think Conroy would try and do a little better at this point, but again, you never quite know. Some more thoughts here. Someone says they absolutely cannot suffer trading another pick for a temporary solution. Again, coming from the Leafs standpoint, they did a bunch of that last year. Tree Living, as we as Flames fans know, loves doing that, and it probably just is not for the best. Another person says, interesting. Have to assume it would be Carlo or Danford going the other way if it were to happen. Defenseman for defenseman, I mean, at that point, what's the point? Another person says, well, since the Leafs get swindled every deal they make, why not just let them take the pick of who they want? Not like anyone on this team goes out to compete on a nightly basis. That must be from a frustrated Leafs fan, but hey, I'm down to, take our pick of the litter when it comes to the Leafs for Andersson. Another person says this team is not worth investing in, so they do not think that the Leafs should trade, any futures for current good players like Andersson. One last person, I think this is actually from a Flames fan, says, good luck. Leafs have zero assets. And that honestly is what it kind of comes to, or what it comes down to at the end of the day. There's one last little report here, and it comes from Pierre LeBrun, and it doesn't have to do with the Leafs, just the Flames. He says Flames ownership, they've never been interested in a full-fledged, completely blow up the team long-term rebuild. That's ownership in general. Then he says that Murray Edwards, he would be concerned about a Buffalo like going into the abyss. He said this a couple days ago on SportsCenter with Jay Onright, and it's interesting. I don't know if this is fully true, of course. You would think if he's saying it that there's got to be some validity to it, but it makes sense why the Flames have never truly blown up. Do I think it's because Murray Edwards is concerned of a Buffalo situation? No, I don't think Murray Edwards really cares about the Flames all that much. He just cares about money, so he wants the team to be good enough that people still pay to go to the games, pay to, buy the sweaters and the merchandise and all of that stuff. I think it's more of a money thing than anything of, oh, we might end up like Buffalo and be bad. So either way, that's just my opinion. Let me know what you think about both Rasmus Andersson to Toronto rumors, just the Flames situation in general. Should they trade away players? And overall, yeah, everyone is talking about the Flames right now, which is quite, it's fun as a Flames fan. We're actually on the map, which is quite exciting. And these trade rumors are always going to persist. Now let's get into the comment of the day to wrap up this video, as we love to do here on the channel. I know this has been a bit of a longer one, but there was just so much to talk about. And Patrick here, bit of a humorous comment, but it's about tanking in general. So Patrick says, Mark, I don't know how I feel about this roster change, talking about Karen's coming up. He says, okay, yes, trade Coleman if you're getting anything decent back, but are we sure about bringing Karen's up? He seems to be scoring a lot for the Wranglers, almost a point per game pace. What happens if he just keeps that going? The Flames have been perfect to this point. Why mess with something that's working so well? And of course, that thing that's working he's talking about is tanking. The Flames not getting any offense. Karen's can provide offense. Unfortunately, didn't last night, but it is true. If it ain't broke, don't fix it in terms of tanking here. But either way, a funny one there from Patrick. Thank you so much for watching this video. Please subscribe to what you saw here today and have a wonderful rest of your day.